Well, good morning. The sun will come out in August. Just to let you know if you're new to the Northwest. Well, today is the last day of this series, last week of the series, but today is also a day that I get to announce to some of you that for all season, some of you bought into an illusion that my 49ers were not that very good. And I just want to let you know that you have been believing a lie. And also, there are some of you out here that are now suddenly Kansas City Chiefs fans. Just want you to let you know that your pastor will be praying for you and your NFL salvation. All right, I just want to let you know that. No, we're going to finish up this series today. Next Sunday is a special Sunday, unique Sunday. I encourage you to come back. I'm not talking about the afternoon. I'm talking about in the services next Sunday, so please come back. But today we are finishing this series because I wanted to start off 2020 to help anybody, whether on this faith journey, whether you have no faith in God through Christ, or you're new to the faith, or you've been walking with Jesus for many years. I wanted to start 2020 to warn us, to prepare us so that we are not deceived, we're not tricked, we're not fooled by the master illusionist, Satan, who wants us to be fooled by believing believable lies. We started this whole series, and every week we've been talking about this series. There's a quote from a pastor in Kansas that said this: Satan wants us to believe something that isn't true so that we will do something that isn't smart. And that's his game plan. And he does this because he doesn't want us to come in relationship with God. And he wants for us to believe lies so that we are kept far apart from God spiritually. But those of us who are in the faith, he wants to draw us away from God and away from the faith in Christ. And the saying goes like this, that if you can change what people believe, you can change how people behave. Our behavioral choices come from a belief system. And if we are believing lies, that'll show up in how we behave. A couple weeks ago, we began showing you some of his most common illusions. First illusion we talked about is that, and it seems true, is that truth is what I decide it is. And our culture has bought this hook, line, and sinker. And we talked about how objectable truth, it's objectable. You take the feelings out, you take the opinions out. Objectable truth must have a non-moving standard. A non-moving standard. But if we believe that I decide what's true, and then you decide what's true, and you decide what's everybody, then truth is always changing, and it produces chaos. The second illusion we talked about last week is that because of what you've done, this is who you are. And we talked about how Satan wants to trick us into believing that his voice is actually the voice of God. So that when we fall and when we fail, because it's going to happen, that we think God is telling us, because you have cheated, you're a cheater. Because you have lost your relationship or lost your marriage or lost your family, you're a loser. Because you failed, you're a failure. And if we believe that that's God telling us that will distance us from God. And it's exactly what Satan would want. And Jesus says this, no, don't listen to him. He says, I want to remind you of what I did to pay for what you did on the cross. And I did that because of who I am. And you may be thinking you're a failure, but if you trust in me, you're not a failure. You are forgiven. That was absolutely a beautiful services. In every service, we saw people coming to Christ for the first time. We saw many people followers of Jesus who have been believing a lie. And if you were up here, you would see the emotion out there of so many people have bought a lie. And they were set free last Sunday. Now, this illusion today is for everybody on the spectrum, whether you have no faith in God or a faith in God. And it seems true, but it's an illusion. Illusion number 3, if you're taking notes, it's up in the title. A good person will do the right thing. A good person is going to do the right thing. Bad people do bad things. Good people do good things. That's an illusion. Oh, it seems true. But that is an illusion. See, the Bible says that man looks on the outward appearance because that's all we see. That's all we know. We can't know anybody's heart, but God says, I know the heart. And we can be tricked by perceptions. Here's a picture. I'm not sure if you can see in the back. You got looks like an innocent girl and a sketchy guy. But behind them, the sketchy guy has flowers and the innocent girl has an axe. All right. All right. But all we can see is on the outside, and perceptions can trick us. If you're taking notes, here's a central point this morning. Good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. Good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. Now, good people, I'm talking about legitimate good people, genuine good person, all right? I see a room probably filled with good people. There's others like you just know them, and they're bad, evil, and they've been deceived, they're in bondage, but good people. I'm not talking about, and you hear those stories where a neighbor is kind of a recluse, and then you find out he's a mass murderer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. I'm a good person. I'm still a sinner, which qualifies me to being fully capable of doing anything. And so are you. But here's a trick. Satan wants you to believe that good people are just going to do the right thing. And that they don't do that. Bad people do bad things. Good people do right things. But have you ever been shocked to receive a text or pull up an email, and it says something like this: have you heard about, period, so sad. And then you've heard about a situation like, of all people, I would have never guessed that this person would have done that. You been there? I have. We're in the midst of the Super Bowl, and a number of years ago, in fact, 1998, Eugene Robinson, who was the safety of the Atlanta Falcons at the time, picked up two things the day before the Super Bowl. That afternoon, he picked up the NFL Man of the Year award. And here's the qualifications. I looked it up. A person with outstanding character in the home, on the field, and in the community. And Eugene Robinson picked that award up. And late that night, right before the Super Bowl, he was also picked up by an undercover policeman posing as a prostitute the day before the Super Bowl. Jacked the Falcons up. They didn't play anywhere good at all. The next day, lost. When he was with the Seahawks, Eugene Robinson, he was and still is a good person. I remember the church he went to, Antioch Christian, great church. And back in the day when we'd go to this thing called Awana Olympics, Eugene Robinson was on the circle down wearing a yellow T-shirt, and he still looked ripped with little kids as an Awana Olympic coach. See, good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. So what happens is we believe that when temptation comes, well, I'm just going to lean into my character. And my character will prevent me from crossing the line of temptation. As I'm going to unpack today, there are 4 lines of like a resistance or defense of temptation, and our character is the 4th line of defense. Not the first. We think it's the first. It's actually the 4th, and I'll explain that later. Because you think, well, I have character, I'll be okay. Case in point, maybe you heard of this guy, King David. There's a passage that God talks about picking David in 1 Samuel. It says this: the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people. This is an accurate description of David. He was a man after God's own heart. Turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11, if you would. Again, another famous story we're going to unpack. And this may be new to you, but if you've been a follower of Jesus for a while and you're like, oh, I've heard the story before. Hey, as you grow in your faith, mostly what you hear on Sunday morning or in Bible study is like, I've heard that before. I needed to hear that again. I needed to be reminded of that again. And that's what this is for. Now, as you're there, we'll get there in just a moment. See, most people think that when temptation comes, not if, but when temptation coming, and if you have a heartbeat and blood flowing through your brains, doesn't matter your age, you are still susceptible to temptation. All of us are. Every single one of us. But we believe that, okay, when it comes, that I will consider the consequences, I'll count the cost, I will lean into my character, and I will make a right decision. That sounds great on paper, especially on a good day. But Satan rarely tempts us on a good day. He usually tempts us on a weak day, W-E-A-K day. He rarely tempts us on a strong day. He tempts us on a weak day. So when temptation comes, how are you going to respond when you are tired? Oh, fertile ground for temptation. How are you going to respond when you are discouraged? Watch out. How are you going to respond when you're frustrated? Anybody ever been frustrated before? Fertile ground. Have you ever been depressed? Fertile ground. You want to know real fertile ground for temptation? When you and I are bored and lonely. Fertile ground. So, what are you going to do? You think, well, I'll just lean into my character. That's the fourth line of defense. Let me give you an illustration. All right, it's New Year, and you got to go to your doctor for your annual checkup and physical, and you do all this sort of stuff. And I don't know if you're like me. The worst part of it is I got to step on a scale, all right? And can I take off my shoes? No, can I really take off my shoes? And can I take everything off, all the weight? And they're like, no, get on there. And then you see the weight, and then you do the test, and the test results come back, and your kind, loving, merciful doctor says, you need to lose some weight. And you're like, thank you I actually paid you to tell me that good news. And you're like, oh, I know he's right, I know she's right. But we don't really enjoy hearing that. So you begin a new diet, and you take out sugar, and you take out this, and you don't eat there, and the first week into it, your stomach is going, what you doing to me? What's going on? And then late at night, you have this urge, because you're hungry, and your stomach says you need some food. So you get up, and you go down, and you open the fridge, and there is talking to you a veggie platter. God's colorful cardboard, right there. And you're like, I know, I just should munch on this. And then you open the other side of the refrigerator, and this is looking at you. It's longing for you. And you hear two voices coming from the refrigerator. Seriously, you hear two voices. The veggie platter is speaking to you and saying, your doctor told you to lose weight. That's what the veggie platter is telling you. The cheesecake is talking to you going, you know you want me. You know you need me. Just take a little slice. Any of you ever heard that voice before? Liars. There's more than 3 hands. Character is our fourth line of defense. When temptation hits us. Again. Chapter 11, verse 1, it says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. Stop the train right there. In the springtime, that was their wartime. All right, it was because of the rain. The previous rainy season, you didn't go out to war in the rainy season when you had horses and you had carts and you had chariots that would get stuck in the mud. Getting stuck in a fight is a very dangerous thing. So they just didn't go off to war until the springtime where the ground was hardened. It's starting to really get hot, and they'd go off to war. But it starts with, in the springtime, when kings go off to war, end of verse, but David remained in Jerusalem. Verse 2. On one evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. Rooftops, baths, you're like, I can't believe she would do that. Well, in that culture, actually, if you go to Jerusalem today, you'll see a lot of flat roofs. Because even with air conditioning, in the springtime and in the summertime, it gets blazing hot. And they would spend the evenings up on the flat rooftops. Now today they have air conditioning. You see all these air conditionings and even water tanks on these flat roofs. But at this time, same thing. It's flat roofs, and at the evening time, you would go up there to cool off. And because it was so hot, back at this time, they did not have a bath inside the house because it would be a sauna. You would take a bath, and you have to take another one when you got out because it's so muggy, so sauna-like. And they would have courtesy, privacy, maybe some type of covering for the neighbor next to you, on this side. The only way you would be seen is if someone had a higher elevation, say like a palace of the king. And I've been to Jerusalem where David's palace was, and it's higher and everything's lower pretty quickly. So she could be seen. Now, there's good probability that she assumed the king was gone. Because it was the springtime, that's when kings left. That's when every able-bodied man left. It's a good assumption for us to believe that she assumed he was not in the palace. Verse 3. And David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife, he makes very clear, David, she's married, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Other passages in the Old Testament tell us that Uriah was one of the 30 mighty men of David. He was part of his special ops crew. Only 30. David knew him by name. They were most likely friends. And the guy said, that's Uriah's wife. Verse 4. Then David sent messengers. Notice it's not the same dude. It sent somebody else. Sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Goes on to say, then she went back home, and the woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I'm pregnant. So David sent word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite, and Joab sent him to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. Just picture maybe a bottle of wine, maybe a Michael Bublé CD. So Uriah left the palace, and the gift from the king was sent after him. Verse 9, but Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all of his master's servants and did not go down to his house. David's like, I can fix this problem. Call the husband home. Send him home with the gift. Come on, he's going to sleep with his wife. It's going to be covered up. And he didn't go home. Look at verse 10. David was told Uriah did not go home, so he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? I mean, that was just completely mind-blowing to David, why you wouldn't go to your wife and you would do what men do when they haven't been with their wife in a long time. Uriah said, verse 11, Uriah said to David, the ark of the covenant, Indiana Jones, that ark of the covenant, and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. Do you notice maybe there's a little phrase that could have caused conviction? How could I go home where we are out in battle sleeping in tents? Maybe that probably stung David's soul. Verse 12. Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on the mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. David's plan A didn't work. David's plan B didn't work. Now David is about to go down on a path that he could not have ever even imagined him going down to. Verse 14. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. Now stop right there. David knew Uriah's character. That he would write a letter and give it to Uriah, knowing he would not open it. This is amazing phrase right there. Let's read what the letter said that Uriah did not open. Verse 15, and he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him so that he will be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. And when the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Not only Uriah died, but other men did as well. They sent word, which is typical. They would send word back to the king. Here's what happened, who died. And so a messenger comes back from the battlefront and gave an update to David. And David heard that there was a battle at the city. They went to where the strongest, usually you go where the weakest. They went to the strongest place for the city. And Uriah died as well as other men. Look at verse 25, the callousness of David's heart, the cold-heartedness of his response. David told the messenger, say this to Joab. Don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. Oh, well, things happen in war. Verse 26, when Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. On the surface, and on the outward appearance, which all that we can see as human beings, we can't see anybody's heart. I don't see any axe carrying people in this room. All we see is the external. David looked pretty good. Because in this culture, single parents, especially single women, moms, were on a path of extreme poverty. They didn't have social safety nets like we have in our country. Many people, many countries have. They were on their own. They couldn't provide for themselves. They were begging for food and for money. But on the appearance, the neighbors thought, isn't David a nice guy? Wow, man, he's taken his friend's wife who's pregnant. Now she has a son. Now he's gonna provide for her. He's gonna take care. Oh, what a guy. See, the neighbors, I'm sure, obviously, when Joab went out, to battle, he did what most soldiers do the last night. They're like, okay, honey, I don't know if I'm going to come home, so we're going to make some love. It's going to be memorable. It's going to sustain. I don't know how long I'll be gone. So they're like, obviously, they slept before he went out to war, and now she's pregnant. Now she has a son. Oh, David, yay, David. And the soldiers, when they came back and they saw, Uriah's wife was pregnant and then gave birth a son, I'm sure they were like, okay. And when Uriah came back, to the soldiers and in the camp field, and then he said, oh yeah, hey David, Uriah, you went home. Nice. How was it, huh? How was Uriah? Oh no, I didn't go home. Right, sure. Yeah, he said he didn't go home. Yeah, come on. Every guy's gonna go home. They assumed he went home, slept with her, she got pregnant. That's his child. But God saw. No one else saw. They were all fooled. The Bible says, be careful of your sin. It will surely come out. See, good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. Here's truth. David genuinely loved God. True that David, he wrote worship songs. True. What's also true is David committed adultery. David set up the murder of his friend. David was responsible for the other guys who died in that battle. The pastor I've been quoting, Jonathan Hoover is from Kansas. He not only is a pastor, but he's a counselor. Been a huge resource for this series for me. And he came up with the 4 lines of defense for character. So, and he got these 4 lines not just from experience, but he did this study. There's called a science of temptation. It's a study. It's not a church study. It's not a religious study. It's a secular study. It's called science of temptation. And so, based upon that, the 4th line of defense for temptation is character. Character is like, I know right, I know wrong, and I'm doing everything I can to do right and avoid wrong. And for the most part, they choose right and avoid wrong. Character is a great thing. Character is always something that we have to develop and guard and protect against, but it's the 4th line of defense. The 3rd line of defense is, what's the situation? What are you walking into? What are you doing? What is the situation? Is it risky? Is it something you should avoid? Something you quickly should get out of? It's a situation. Placing yourself in a tempting situation is foolishness. And I said this actually a lot. Sin makes us stupid. A lot of stupid is right here. We place ourselves in a risky situation. David, when he went out for a stroll, I doubt that he went out looking, who can I sleep with tonight? He probably went out because, man, I'm hot. When he saw a beautiful picture and beautiful visual image, he didn't immediately leave. See, seeing something tempting is not sin. Lingering is. He lingered. But he placed himself in this situation by not being where he should have been, off to war. So when I heard about this science of temptation from Jonathan Hoover, I went, ooh, I want to look. So I started researching the science, and there was a study done that I found that from Northwest University a number of years ago, and they did a study on temptation. And so what they did a number of them, but one that really jumped out to me was one involving cigarettes. And so they got 53 students at Northwestern University who smoke, and they brought them in, and the whole purpose is to see if you can watch a movie without smoking. But the movie they were going to show to them, they had to watch the whole thing and not smoke, see if they can resist that temptation. The movie was entitled Coffee and Cigarettes. So they're going to watch a movie with people drinking coffee and lighting up. And these are smokers. And they say, see who's going to resist watching this movie. But we're going to give you opportunities to choose your risk, to choose, depending on your confidence of, I can watch that and not smoke. They could choose. So they handed every student an unlit cigarette and some matches. And they said, based upon your confidence of not being tempted and lighting up during the movie, if you can't wait, you have options. So one option was to take your unlit cigarette, leave the room, go to the next room, and place it in there. And then come back in the room and watch the movie. The second option was you take your cigarette and just place it on your desk. And if you're confident, you won't light it up, just leave it on your desk. Don't touch it while you watch the movie. The third option was keep it in your fingers while you watch the movie. And the fourth option, if you're really strongly convinced that you can resist temptation, put it in your mouth during the movie. Unlit, put it in your mouth. The people with the most confidence, I can watch this movie and not smoke. The people had it in their mouth or in their fingers, even on the desk. So after the visual of the movie, guess who violated and gave in to temptation the most? The people who had the most confidence that I'm good. I can put it in my mouth. I can hold it. I can have it on my desk. The people who rarely went out of the room and smoked were the ones who didn't smoke. The professor who did this study said this. This is not a pastor. This is a professor. He said, people are not good at anticipating the power of their urges. And those who are the most confident about their self-control are most likely to give in to temptation. There's a bunch of truth here. I'm a good person. I have character. I have self-control. I'm very confident. I won't do it. The most confident become the most likely to give in. Good people are going to do the right thing. Not always true. David placed himself in a high-risk situation. The next line of defense is this: make plans. Make plans. It's not when we're going to be tempted, it's when we're going to be tempted. And there are two types of plans. There are proactive plans. That I'm going to proactively come up with a plan that I will do this when this happens. One of the plans that I have, that I plan for and even save money toward, is that when my wife is out of town visiting my grandson, she's leaving me for a younger man. When she leaves, I plan on doing house projects instead of being alone with my remote control. So when she went off and left me for her sister's wedding in Virginia, I remodeled our master bathroom. I planned that, all right? And I'm still getting points for the heated floors, by the way, every night. You know, and when she left this, I'm like, I'm gonna retile our laundry room, or I'm gonna repaint doors and replace doors, and it's a proactive plan. I'm gonna do this when this happens. A reactive plan is when I am offered this is what I'm gonna do. One of my plans is, if I have an opportunity to go to a conference, it's a reactive, I'm not going to go alone. Even to a pastor's conference. If this is offered to me and I go, I'm not going to go alone. I've taken my wife, I've taken interns, I've taken other people. I will not go alone. It's reactive, proactive and reactive. I have a chance to go. I have a plan. One of the plans God gives us in the Bible is pretty clear. It's not vague. Here's a plan, all right? It's this from 1 Corinthians. Run from sexual immorality. It doesn't say pray about it. I am faced with an opportunity. Oh my goodness, it's on my computer. Dear God, I just want to ask for your help. No, run from it. Click, turn it off, run. If I'm tempted in a situation that's going to tempt me to do something immoral, run from it. Don't have a Bible study about it. Run. That's a plan. This is a plan. This is for your notes. Satan, this is not in your notes, actually this is free. Satan paints targets on people who don't plan. You don't plan? Most people don't have a plan. Satan paints targets on people who don't plan. And you're thinking, Barry, you just don't understand. I'm older now. I'm older now. There's no way. Or Barry, you're not going to tell me this. You're thinking this. I am not that attractive. Who's going to want me? Who's going to want me? Scholars say that David was not a young man when he slept with Bathsheba. He was probably in his late 50s, early 60s. But Satan wants to trick us into believing that a good person will not do those things. If we believe that, like, I'm good, my character, watch out. The first line of defense is good habits. What we do all the time, do all the time, do all the time, do all the time. So when we are tempted, when we're weak, when we're lonely, when we're bored, when we're all by ourselves, we typically will then rely on just doing what we do. Doing what we do. Whether it's certain things with your phone or computer or relational, or if you're tempted with financing and gambling, you get into good habits. Then when you're tempted, you usually end up doing what you normally do. I wrote down some habits that I have put into my life, and I make sure that I reinforce those habits. Here are some for me. It's a habit of mine, I never drive alone with another female in the car unless it's who's not my wife or daughter. I just don't. Even when I used to have an assistant and she was in my youth group back in the day and she's super close, like one of my daughters, and she lived a block from me, and Lindsay said, oh, my car, can I get a ride home? No, Lindsay, I don't do that. Oh, that's right. It's a habit. This is what I do. Another habit, I never counsel a female alone without staff nearby. That's why I have a big old window on my office door. It's a habit. I purposely don't have premium cable channels, even when they're given to me for free. Like, hey, for 3 months you could have this and this. I'm like, no, I don't want it. Block them. Sir, but it's free. I don't care. It's a habit. That's what I do. Another habit I do is I do not keep secrets from my wife. I just do. Satan has a field day with secrets. I do not keep secrets from my wife. Another habit in my life, I invest in my wife 10 times more than any other relationship, including my daughters. Outside of Jesus, that's the most important person in my life, and I invest all the time. Another habit I do is I enjoy my wife's amazing cheesecake often. If you're not laughing, that's a double meaning that I hope my mom doesn't get right now. I say this, I've said this line a bunch of times. You can tweet this. I'm rarely tweetable, but I've said this. It's so true. Little to no accountability leads to incredible stupidity. Little to no accountability leads to incredible stupidity. So in this Illusions series, the heart of me, your pastor, to you and to myself, don't be fooled. Don't be deceived. Don't be tricked. Because Satan is a liar, and he is a punk, and he's an enemy, and he wants to draw you away from God, and he wants to draw you into sin, and he wants to draw you into bondage and take away everything good in your life. And you can't just walk through life like, I'm good, I'm a good person. David was a good person, but good people are fully capable of doing really bad things. I pray all the time, like I shared a couple weeks ago, God, help me not to be stupid. Because the last thing I want to do is look into my bride's face and tell her my stupidity. Or to look in any one of my daughter's face and tell them what's coming out in news. Or to stand before you and to share that I've been stupid. This is called the fear of God in my life. I'm not like, oh my God. It's like, no, I'm afraid of my sin that will dishonor my God and the people that I love. So some of you need to make new habits. You need to write down some habits and start developing new habits. Some of you need to come up with a proactive plan, a reactive plan, when I'm out to sea, when my spouse is gone. What am I going to plan? People will make no plans. Satan will go after you. Or some of you know, like, okay, I've got to avoid stupid situations. I got to have some type of accountability. So I'm not going to be put in dumb situations. And all of us need to continue to develop and strengthen and fortify our character. Now, as I close this series, I just want to mention, I talked about some of my habits, some of my investments into my marriage and my wife. Just want to plant this seed because we're going to start advertising this soon. The weekend of Friday and Saturday after Easter, we are going to have a marriage conference here at GracePoint. And I want every married person, it's $35 per person, even if your spouse is not in town that weekend, be here to infuse some investments into your marriage. Would you pray with me? God, one of the reasons why I know this Bible is holy, it comes from you, is because us human beings avoid putting bad situations in a book. We want to look good. But you gave us the story of David, who was a man after your own heart. You told us this story to warn us, to equip us. Lord, may we take it to heart. God, I pray for me. Help me to be the man, the husband, the father, the son that you want me to be. And help me to always be on my guard against an enemy who wants to take me out. I pray this for my church, for my friends that I love. Help us in this war. We pray this in the name of Jesus, who gives us victory. And in his name we say, amen.